KTNF AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Good morning to all of you joining us locally by radio and streaming online. We appreciate you tuning in. Today is Sunday, December 2nd? 2nd. I'm your host, Hertzie Hertz, and I'm here in studio with Maddie Love, and we have Robert from the Right to Reason podcast on Skype. This is an open conversation, and we'll welcome and encourage listener interaction with your phone calls to 952-946-6205, your emails to radio@mnatheist.org. You can tweet us at Atheist Talk, or check out the Facebook page, The Atheist Talk. The phone number is only available when we are live, but you can always email or tweet us whether you're live or listening to the podcast. Next week... this week. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong script. So this week we have Robert. And Robert, we were talking on Facebook Messenger about this, and you actually had a couple of interesting ideas as to what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Was it how to raise alpacas? Was that one of them? I can't remember.
Yes, because I love llamas. I really do.
No, he said alpacas. That's not a llama.
That's not a llama?
Are they not the same thing?
They are not the same thing.
Like, how much difference is there?
Size, like species, and like one of them, when they get like really high enough in their order, becomes a dolly. But in all seriousness, stupid jokes aside, yeah, they are different species.
How do you know so much about this, dude?
Because
Maddie's awesome.
Alpacas are a lot smaller than llamas.
Oh, okay, then definitely llamas. Definitely llamas, because I'm pretty sure you can ride a llama.
You can ride anything with nipples.
And we are live on radio.
Good morning.
Yes. No, you did have, one of them was talking about how some of the political climate is turning people away from evangelicalism.
Yeah, I think so. As progressives, I think we get really frustrated with Trump and just how insane everything is right now. But
hold on. One quick disclaimer. Please note that the opinions are the guests and hosts only and do not necessarily reflect those of Minnesota Atheists as an organization. Okay, you can continue.
On behalf of Minnesota Atheists as an organization,
from Texas.
I fully support Donald Trump and all his political activity. No.
As a Texan, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, right. Well, we went cruise. I was very disappointed. I had to take the Beto sign out of my front yard that next morning, and a neighbor was walking by and saw me, and they just had like a grin on their face, and I almost hit him with the sign, but then that'd make me Antifa. So I'm not.
Here is a sign from God.
But no, what I was going to say is that it's really easy to get discouraged right now. But we have to remember that as atheists, at least, this is breaking down a lot of the religious rights claims. I mean, they can still be hypocritical all they want, but it's going to be very obvious, at least to the center people. You know, we might be far left and we might be angry at the far right, but the people in the center, they're paying attention. They're paying attention to how we behave and, in respect to Antifa, right? They're paying attention to how the right behaves, in Charlottesville, and they're paying attention to how Trump behaves. And Trump right now is totally destroying any claim that they have of being the good guy. Coming up on Christmas holiday, we're going to see a lot of religious right Christian fundamentalists saying, "Let's not help the migrant caravan. Let's not help." Immigrants, let's not help people seeking asylum. And it's totally an objection to their biblical views.
Yeah. I'm actually really curious to see how the right is also going to handle the whole war on Christmas, because Trump has often said, now it's legal to say this as if it wasn't before. It's like, and this is a frustration I have, because I know that this is something that there's many people who get this wrong. Corporations, when they do these things, like when they decide like if Minnesota Atheists said, "Hertzie, you can't be on the radio anymore," that has nothing to do with the government. That is Minnesota Atheists as an organization deciding on a policy. Has nothing to do with the government. Right. If Target decides to say Happy Holidays, that's Target. Bring it up with Dayton, but not Mark Dayton, but not as the governor, but as one of the family members who owns Target. Massive difference.
It's almost like a subtle message, a little whisper of implication that he's going to change the social dynamic. And that's one thing that Republicans, they really have never had a handle on. I mean, maybe historically before, the civil rights flip of Republican and Democrat, right? But essentially, liberal agenda kind of moves the social message forward. We saw that with LGBTQ rights here in the last administration. So they would love to have that power, but it's just not realistic, historically speaking.
No, because I mean, the thing is the younger, at least, and this is coming from, well, Robert, you're older millennial, right?
I'm old.
No, older millennial.
Old, yeah. Born in 83, so I'm kind of like technically a millennial. But
you're also a bunch of little whippersnappers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was born in 83 too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we're the same age. So it's like when you and I were early, late high, like in that high school age, there was still a lot of that whole just coming out as gay or lesbian was a huge thing. And so for a lot of us, it was like, well, why is this looking at our elders, especially the people who were not thrilled with it. And at least for me, I was looking going, wait, why is this an issue again? And so I think
right.
that whole the younger people will always carry it forward because we're the ones who look at it and go, okay, so you say X, but you're doing Y. I'm not sure I understand this. I mean, granted, I also got super lucky and had a family who, really didn't have much, like, they weren't really anti stuff, so that helped. Yeah. But then you have the kids who rebel against it and who are like, their parents are, extremely fundamental in those areas, and then they're like, no, I've met these people, I've hung out with them. There's no difference in that sense.
Yeah, that was more me. I grew up real fundamentalist, but you know what I wonder about, and that's a tough question because I don't know the answer, and maybe your listeners do, or maybe you guys do, but
call in if you know the answer.
But how do we know which messages, which progressive messages, which messages from that next generation that's just waiting to scream it at the top of their lungs, listen to me, how do we know if they're right? You know what I mean? Like we've had a pretty decent track record, but we can also look at other countries and see where they got it wrong. Because, at the time, being a Nazi was a pretty progressive thing in Germany, right? So how do we know if we're perpetuating the right message instead of just, getting behind whatever the new message is, especially in this whole social media world?
I would argue that, you just look, for me, regardless of what message I hear, it's like the first thing to look at it is it moral? And, what is your morality? And mine is along the lines of something like Matt Dillahunty would say, is it good for people? How does it contribute to well-being? And then whatever this new message that's coming out is okay, is it helping or hurting people? Because I could look at, if say a Nazi is, if you go back to the late 20s, when Nazi fascism was on the rise, it's like, okay, well, you can look and go, this is not good for everybody. This is scapegoating a group of people and advocating harm for a group of people. So I'm going to go with, no, this is bad. And that's easy for me to say in 2018. Right. I'm not living in in 1917 or later.
At the same time, it's like I look at it because, I mean, the history of scapegoating and, as we're talking about the Nazi Party, scapegoating, the Semite population has been something that's been done for a long time. And it's one of those, the three of us are ones who at least have glanced at history books and retain enough to look at this. And I feel that if we were in the 1920s, we could very easily glance at this again. Just, you don't, because it's been going since the Middle Ages, if not longer, and go, I really got a feeling that this isn't good. Yeah,
because being anti-Semitic at the time, it was more mainstream to be anti-Semitic, but you still had all the available information to know that it was an immoral position to take.
Right. It's kind of scary, but I think that's a pretty good guideline, maybe. It makes it feel a little bit safer to join one group or another if you say, well, let's just try to do the most good to everybody, kind of utilitarianism, maybe. Well,
and you had talked about, going back the way that evangelicals, conservative Christianity and the conservative right, and Trump. And I was thinking at the same time, for a long time, their message was fairly on point and fairly solid on trying to back candidates they would get into office and at least pay lip service to all of these conservative religious ideas. And what we're seeing now is the hypocrisy of the religious right backing somebody who clearly has not lived their values, blatantly does not live their values. And I'm interested to see, like, as we go forward, like, how they try to recover from that.
Go ahead, Robert.
Sorry. But yeah, I don't think the far right will feel they do need to recover. I think they'll just keep on being hypocritical. You know, they'll say, hey, look at Michelle Obama doesn't, have sleeves on her dress. That is so inappropriate. And then, you say, well, look at these nude photos of our president FLOTUS. And they go, oh, stop judging. They just move the goalposts wherever they want. But it's the center people. The center are the ones that you got to fight for. And I think it's those center people that you say, they're paying attention and they're going to remember.
I see, Maddie, actually, with some of the hypocrisy. I mean, like the stuff that Robert was talking about just a moment ago, I definitely see where they're just moving the goalpost. But when it comes to some of the more like anti-Semitism and racism and such, I actually kind of disagree with that. I think that for them, that's not hypocrisy. And we will get back to that when we get back from the break. And we'll return to Atheist Talk with Robert from The Right to Reason and Maddie Love. Welcome back to AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. You're tuned in to Atheist Talk, and I'm your host, Hertzie Hertz. And I'm talking in studio with Maddie Love and on Skype with Robert from the Right to Reason podcast. Atheist Talk is produced with the funding from the Minnesota Atheist and Cucumbers Restaurant in Edina, Minnesota. Please consider visiting our sponsors, and if you do, let them know that you appreciate their support of Atheist Talk. If you'd like to advertise on this program and help keep us on the air, you can contact us at radio@mnatheist.org. As for the here and now, if you'd like to get involved in the conversation with Maddie, Jordan, and I this morning, you can call us at 952-946-6205, email us at radio@mnatheist.org, or tweet us at @atheisttalk. I'm sorry, Maddie just did the sign of the cross at me, and I'm trying to figure out why. Or you can use our Facebook page. Maddie, what?
I'll tell you later.
Okay, good. Because I was just like, I grew up Catholic. That has a whole host of.
That was actually directed towards Robert.
Oh, okay.
It was the cross symbol.
Yeah, it was like
I told Robert I was going to do it. I was forgiving him and blessing him and atoning, or whatever other Christian words are.
Oh, thank you.
So we were talking about some of the ideas of the hypocrisy and such. And now, Robert, because I have to bring up Gamcast apparently all the time, do you listen to god-awful movies?
I've listened to a bunch of them. I don't have it where it loads up every time they drop one, but I love the show, yeah.
I admittedly, and as Maddie and I were talking during the break, I listen to them almost obsessively. I've listened to most of their episodes more than once.
Oh, and I'm definitely a patron.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally a patron. Cause
I'm actually only a patron of 3 shows, and they are one of them.
Yeah, I'm sorry, The Wicker Man. The Wicker Man.
That was the first episode I ever heard.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, that was the episode Marissa McCool introduced me to them on a road trip, and that was the first episode I've listened to, and I have been hooked ever since.
Oh, yeah, so it's one of their patrons. If you're not a patron, Robert, you should be, because Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage. That's all I'm going to say. I
actually liked that movie.
The one with Nicolas Cage?
Yes, I know. I'm the only person that did, but I thought it was awesome.
I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
I just did it.
I'm sorry. Nicolas Cage and I have no. Anyways, moving on.
Is there anything he did that you liked?
We'll talk about that at the Patreon stuff, okay? All right. So, but we were talking about the hypocrisy and such, and what Maddie and I talked about a little bit. Sorry, you were listening to the commercials. Was just the factor that in listening to them break down all of these Christian movies and such, there's themes that I've seen, and that whole hypocrisy, not just the the light hypocrisy of the FLOTUS versus the previous FLOTUS, but like the more extreme, it's like, no, that's what they really believe, and it's really coming out. And Maddie, you mentioned about the centrists. Yes.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Well, I was just thinking, like, it's not, as Robert was talking about earlier, getting the centrists are the ones that we have to worry about. And I feel like the people that are center to / just left of center, or the centrists that aren't religious, that they might be looking at some of this anti-Semitic, anti-immigrant, xenophobic stuff and going, I'm not sure. But you made a really good point, Hersey, that some of those centrists are actually just as bad. Well,
it's not just as bad, but what they see is, because what we'll do is we'll go over to like the Nazis, like with Charlottesville, and we're like, hey, no, and at times defending ourselves, which is what I feel a lot of that was, at least on the left side. There wasn't, as far as I know, the left hasn't actually attacked anybody, but had been like, no, I don't want to be punched. And then what they do is they twist it, and they're like, see, they attacked us. And it's just...
You're being intolerant.
It's like, yeah, but there's limits to tolerance. I'm sorry, Robert.
On many sides, right? That was the quote.
Yeah, that was... It's like, because even Antifa, they don't really attack, really.
Sure. I can't agree with you on that.
I don't know.
I think Antifa certainly has its uses. I mean, it certainly helped in not having a second Charlottesville. What was the second location that they were going to do? And
Portland
they shut it
or
down?
Seattle?
I think I think it was Portland. Yeah, but it is effective. It's just not. It's not good marketing. That's all.
No.
Well, and I view these as like, I mean, it kind of sounds like we're getting a little political, and I guess we are, but I'm viewing this as like, as an atheist. And this goes back to like the last show that I did where we talked to Camille Berejak on why LGBTQ issues are atheist issues. And I think some political issues are atheist issues when we're looking at it from the standpoint of, why are we demonizing this group of people? And there's no rational reason to demonize a group of people based upon their skin color or their country of origin, or their religious beliefs, unless they have a really. In fact, if you're going to discriminate against a group of people for their religious beliefs, the far fundamentalist right are somebody you should demonize for their religious beliefs. But even then, it's like we should be judging people on their actions and their behaviors, not on their skin color, their parents, and things like that. So I almost feel like it's not an atheist issue, but it is, because we try to be rational, and we try to have, our beliefs come from a secular place.
What scares me is if you look at what we do in other countries, anytime that we want to topple their government or instill some kind of pro-capitalist dictator, right? Mostly South American countries, right? We always try to get them to distrust their military. We always try to get them to distrust their media. We always try to get them to distrust their government and believe their government is corrupt. And if you look at what's been happening in our media recently, ever since Trump, and it kind of leans into where we saw the Saudi prince high-fiving Putin recently, right? It was kind of creepy. And it's 3 out of 4. We've got 3 out of 4 of those tactics happening to America right now. And all we need, the only other one, the final shoe to drop, is if we start thinking our military distrusts our government official. And I'm kind of nervous about in 2020, 2024, whoever is put in that place of leadership, if they're going to be someone that the right wing media starts saying the military hates Bernie or the military hates Tulsi Gabbard or what have you. You know what I mean? And then we got trouble.
Well, I feel like, and I guess I don't know what your family is like. I have a lot of family that have been in the military. I mean, I myself was in the military. And
sisters in the military.
Yeah, and to be honest, there is diversity in the military, but almost everybody that I went with tends to lean more conservative and have hated every one of the Democratic presidents, which I don't quite understand.
Actually, but my sister's the outlier on that. Well, there's other stuff, but I don't want to air out that stuff.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, but even with Obama, it was like, this guy, he's going to pull us out of war. And that was a reason that I had a lot of military friends at the time. And that was one thing that they were like, we shouldn't be over there, but I don't like Obama's way of pulling us out. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what? You can't just be happy with something that you agree with?
Well, it's kind of like if you think about it, it's like the Affordable Care Act. You change the name and it's the exact same thing, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh no, I like this."
Right.
Right.
Like, that's a good point.
It's the same thing. You just changed the name.
That sounds like religion.
But we will return with Robert and Maddie Love after the break. Please stay with us. Thank you for tuning in to Atheist Talk on AM 950 KTNF. I'm your host, Hertzie Hertz, and we were having what I would classify as a fascinating conversation with Maddie Love and Robert from the Right to Reason podcast. If you'd like to get involved in our conversation with Maddie and Robert this morning, you can call us at 952-946-6205. Email us at radio@mnatheist.org, tweet us at @atheisttalk, or check out our Facebook page, Atheist Talk. Before we continue with this conversation, there's some housekeeping I need to attend to. I want to note our dedicated group of volunteers and the generous donations of you, our listeners. You help keep Atheist Talk on the air and in podcast form, and I'd like to note our donors of the week, which is Eric, Anita, and Jean, and our new patron, the Odd Atheist Friend. That's kind of odd, isn't it?
That's very odd.
Yeah, at least they're friendly.
We should talk to our friends Matt and Eric about that.
Yeah, we should talk to them. But if you're able to help with the donation, please consider doing so at our Radio Fund page or our Patreon, where you can get extended interviews at www.patreon.com/atheisttalk. It looks like this week we'll be talking about the love and hate of Nicolas Cage. I'm not going to let this one go. It's still there. Minnesota Atheist is a 501c3 tax-deductible organization. We couldn't do the show without you, and we deeply, deeply appreciate your support. Music for Atheist Talk is by composer Brent Michael Davis and is used with permission. And please again note that all opinions are the guest and host only and do not necessarily reflect those of the Minnesota Atheist organizations. And now let's get back to our conversation with Maddie and Robert.
That was a long list. How were you able to memorize all of that each and every time?
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It's not like I have a screen in front of me that I scroll down and try and remember how to say words.
Still, it's even good if read, though.
Minnesota Atheist is a 401k. Oh, nope. Dang it. I forgot. We don't believe in an afterlife, so we can't help you retire.
I read
that doesn't
most of
work.
the stuff.
Wait, what did you say, Robert?
No, I was just saying, I read most of the stuff, like my intros and outros on my podcast, but even reading them, I screw up 20 times each episode. But the good thing is I get to edit. You guys are live, so.
There's a thing about being live that I think affects the brain and the body. Because, I've had times where I've had, really bad colds. I've come in and I'm just super stuffy. For the 45 minutes I'm on the air, I'm totally clear. I walk out of the studio and I'm just stuffed up again.
For the podcast that my wife and I do together, I was trying to read the outro, and it's like, I wrote this. I should be able to read this. And I tried to record that 20 times. I handed the script to Julie, and I'm like, Julie, can you please read this? And then I actually kept all 20 outtakes at the tail end of the episode.
Well, yeah, because you can use those for intro music stuff.
Well, and just as you know what? I'm not perfect. Never claimed to be.
I think people appreciate that. If they're wanting to hear a live show, they accept errors. If they're wanting to hear an edited show, they don't expect errors, but I think they like to hear them like the way that you do, where you put them at the end or something. That's kind of fun.
Yeah. So anyway, we were
humanizes us.
What? We are not human. We are definitely human. Totally human. Yeah.
More human than human. That's a white.
Did you ever see that? Speaking of politics, that whole Ted Cruz is a human candidate thing that was going around, where it's like I really am a human. I do things that humans do.
I thought that was
so funny.
I thought that was definitely more clever than the whole he was the Zodiac thing, because I was just like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, and even Trump got behind that kind of conspiracy theory stuff, your dad killed JFK. What?
But are we really surprised he has a history of going through conspiracy theories. I mean,
the birther thing.
Oh yeah, and the other some of the other stuff, like the whole thing with the Democrats and their child
Pizzagate.
Pizzagate. You know, this stuff goes all through there. And what's hilarious is like, okay, so you were talking about the press and the idea of the press having issues. And I mean, I have to say, I have to kind of separate that into two areas of the press, because you have kind of the more like Fox and going from their press. And then you have like the Times, the Washington Journal, and those ones who, you know, their track, heck, even BuzzFeed, you know, because they're the ones who broke out with the dossier during the election. And it's like these places, not every single thing is perfect. They're going to make mistakes. They're human, you know, but they will also retract and correct their mistakes and such. And it's one of those where a lot of them are just trying their hardest to keep that going. But then again, you have these other ones who are going into these conspiracy theories. And what's interesting is these, you know, the Times, the Post, and all these ones, they vet their stuff, or at least they try to. They try to make sure that they vet it. But like InfoWars, they're not going to vet. They're going to create half of that stuff if they have to.
Well, I mean, it didn't even have to be InfoWars. Fox News is pushing the whole conspiracy theory that the quote-unquote migrant caravan is financed by George Soros. And that's obviously a conspiracy.
And even if it was, it's a bunch of people who are running away from conditions that none of us can even imagine. I mean,
right.
you are willing to, so many people, it's like I love Minnesota. And part of the reason I love it is because of how it has worked to what it is. It's not perfect. We have an amazing number of issues. But if Minnesota went the way of Texas, no offense, Robert.
None taken.
I would probably go to California. Or even just Canada. But I mean, I would definitely look at leaving. But a lot of people have a deep, deep love of just where they are and such, and their communities with all of the flaws. And so for them to pick up and leave would be almost incomprehensible. And I'm like, so imagine you have to leave because this place is so bad, you're gonna die.
Right. Right.
And you're taking a long trip that has almost as many concerns going on this long trip, because you're on foot for most of it. You don't know who's going to help you. You don't know what dangers are on the road. All you know is it's better than where you're leaving.
And it's one thing to be against, say, allowing these people to enter the country, seeking asylum the legal way that they are. It's one thing to be against them for rational reasons, or reasons that aren't based in fear and conspiracy theories. Like, look, I just believe that our border should be closed, or yes, I just believe that, I'm against immigration for, insert rational reason here. But when it's
rational,
I'm against, immigration because George Soros is paying these people. It's like, that's just irrational and silly. Like, we should not give that opinion the same weight to somebody who's like, look, I don't believe that the country can financially sustain more people because I feel like there's already – like, that's an opinion I don't agree with, but I can understand the rationality behind it. I mean, I can respect the person, like, look, we have a difference of opinion. I don't – but it's not on the same level as there's an evil – but to be fair, there's an evil Jewish man funding this because it's George Soros is a stand-in for anti-Semitism,
which is hilarious because they've also claimed he was a Nazi.
Because when you're demonizing somebody or you're demonizing just a conspiracy theory, conspiracy theorists can have completely separate, mutually exclusive ideas. It's
It's like the real irony is like whenever they'll say, well, why don't they just stay in their own country and fix it? Like as if we would be the tough guy doing that. But then that same tough guy says, hey, let's shoot those women and children that are trying to get in here. You know what I mean? Like, don't even let them, they're throwing rocks at us. Let's just, don't use pepper spray. Just shoot them already. Like, that's, like, oh, that's a real tough guy. Like, wow. And you're telling me that someone with your just character and your fortitude would actually be able to improve your country if it was going through a major crisis, a crisis that we contributed to. We forget that. We don't want to take responsibility for our own actions.
Well, and I've been told as an atheist, hey, if you don't like it here in Christian America, just leave. Okay, so I should migrate to another country? Is that what you're saying?
I just would love to see the scientific, because there's a fair number of the scientific community who's at least in that rational secularist type, and I would love to see what would happen if all of them migrated out.
Yeah, you don't want to stay. Let me just believe me. Like, I'm just telling you the truth here. You do not want to stay. That would be a bigly problem.
Bigly. I do understand how skeptical they are of the caravan itself, because you have to think it'd be like if you two ladies walked all the way to Texas, and then you look at some of the pictures of them, they don't even have shoes, some of them. And it's hard for us, in this, as much of an economic struggle as the U.S. is going through, but this lap of luxury, to look at that and go, well, how else could they get here? Somebody's financing this thing. And I understand that. It's just, it's what's the word for it? Where you have so much, and it makes it to where you can't really understand what that other person.
Is that cognitive dissonance?
No.
Okay, good.
Or like a form of privilege or something.
Yeah.
Yes. like that's where we can't really understand it just because of our privilege.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those. It's like I try my dangedest to put myself in that thing and just think how bad is it before I would be like, okay, there's just nothing left.
Sam and Frodo walked from the Shire to Mount Doom barefoot.
Okay, do not make me go through a Hobbit's biological construct of the feet, because
financed by the elves.
Tolkien wrote 5
George
pages
Soros
is an elf.
George Soros is Elrond or Gandalf.
Bernie Sanders would be Gandalf.
Oh, that's true. The white hair.
White hair, for sure.
No, he's Radagast.
Actually, yeah.
He's Radagast the Brown. Yeah.
Definitely.
George Soros is the blue wizards that you never hear about.
Ooh.
They're only referenced.
George Soros and what's his name? Warren
Buffett?
Yeah, Warren Buffett. Those are the blue wizards.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about the Shire.
So wait, is the U.S. the Shire or Canada?
Why, that's a good question. Well, in this case, Central America is the Shire, because that's where people are migrating from.
True.
You're all nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, we haven't met face to face, Robert, but we've been on each other's shows a couple of times here.
He calls us a nerd like it's a bad thing.
I know.
It's not bad anymore. That's true. When we were growing up, it was a bad word, but now it's like a cool thing.
At the same time, though, there are times actually where it's a question for me to want to be associated with the geek society, because there are so many issues. I mean, kind of
the Me Too stuff.
Yeah, the Me Too stuff. There's kind of a left turn with the whole incel group. A lot of those people are video gamers. I don't want to say not tabletop gamers. There's
mostly video gamers, though.
Mostly video gamers.
Well, it's young white males.
Yes.
Young
cis white males. It kind of.
I'll tell you what. I think you're onto something about the nerd thing, because I think that's primarily what Me Too's all about, is a bunch of nerds.
Well,
that's who's behind it.
We'll continue this conversation when we get back from the break with Robert and Maddie. Welcome back to AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. You're tuned into Atheist Talk. I'm your host, Hertzy Hertz, and it's talking in studio with Maddie Love and our ever fun guest, Robert Stanley. And this is our final segment with Maddie and Robert. If you're curious about Minnesota Atheists, you can check out the Minnesota Atheist website. We have previous episodes. You can browse articles, book reviews, and the calendar of upcoming events, which we actually have quite a few fun ones coming up.
What?
Yeah, a winter solstice dinner.
Which, I mean, I'm completely biased on, but it's going to be fabulous.
Julie and I will be there.
I will be there. David Gammett will be there.
We saw him do up close stuff, up close effects. That's what he calls
Yes.
it. Up close effects, sitting at the Cucumbers, at Cucumbers restaurant, which is obviously a delicious restaurant, one of our sponsors.
And of course, is also where we are going to be having brunch. Well, I don't know, Maddie, are you? Well,
brunch today?
There is a brunch today.
I am doing brunch today.
I unfortunately have a board thing, so I can't make it.
I can't believe I forget about it's the first Sunday of every month.
It is.
You'd think that I could remember when the brunch is.
I can barely remember what day it is some days, so.
Today is Sunday.
Today is Sunday.
You read the date earlier.
I did, even though it was wrong in my notes.
I was wondering about your intro of me just now in this final segment where you're like, and we have Robert Stanley. The ever interesting guy. Like there was a hesitation there. It was like a
she was trying to decide between the best affectation that she could choose because she had fabulous, amazing, fantastic, wonderful, intelligent, compassionate. She had all of these she could pick from.
It's almost as bad as going, he's a great guy. He's really, he's just great.
We've known him a long time. One of my closest friends.
He's got a great personality.
Yeah, that's a good one.
No, it's
personality.
It's actually because and this is going to be a peek into how I prep for the show or lack thereof. I have, kind of a canned script for a lot of these intros, which makes sense since it's radio and I have, we have this stuff, but sometimes I don't always edit all of them. And so I have something from a few months ago, and it was one of the few times where it kind of hiccuped, and I'm like, there's a descriptor word, but I don't want to reuse that descriptor word. But yes, so we have great events coming up.
Is that a segue?
I don't know. I can't segue right now.
Oh, I love segues. We did a tour on a Segway. It was fantastic. Didn't have to walk.
Let me tell you something about the dictionary. We're
going to talk about these awesome events, though, because, again, winter solstice, which everybody should go to. We are also going to be doing a super special holiday episode this year. Maddie, do you want to give any spoilers about that?
No, I will refuse to talk about the War on Christmas and the Kendra Burns documentary that may be coming from that.
Oh, yes. It is going to be awesome. Keep an eye out on Facebook and Twitter. Hopefully we'll have some more information coming up soon. I know I've said that before, but I promise this time. Swear. we have way more information about it now, which is great. But if you do enjoy the show and all that Minnesota Atheist has to offer, consider being a member of Minnesota Atheist while you're on the website. Membership has some great perks. Checks out the hows and the whys on the website. And now officially back to our conversation with Robert and Maddie.
And Robert, you should come up here for the winter solstice dinner.
Yes.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Oh, last year? No, it was last year. No, 2 years ago, because we switch off with the Humanist. So it was 2 years ago. It was so cold.
In the building? Not in the building, though, right?
No. The building
will be heated.
The building will be heated. It
Yes.
is in the Embassy Suites in Brooklyn Park, which is a wonderful place. Gorgeous decor. Yeah, but it was a cold day. The cold shock came early that year.
Well, yeah, it's the first day of winter.
Well, no, but we always have like those super cold, like in January and February, where it gets just like super cold.
Where the wind chill is at like -40.
Yep, even in the cities.
Yeah. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, maybe not gorgeous. I like just sitting in my house.
I love cold weather. I also have the privilege of not being homeless or having to work outside. So,
all right. So when we left the conversation, because I'm kind of avoiding this, we were talking about the geeks and such. And
Gamergate's like your favorite thing to talk about.
Well, I mean, and there, I know that there's probably some of our listeners who don't know much about it, so we might actually have to do a thing on this. For those who don't know, Gamergate started with a woman who wanted to research female characters in video games, and the video game community didn't like this and didn't react well. As far as I know, Anita Sarkeesian, who's the woman who was putting it together, is still getting death threats. She still has issues going places to do speaking. And that was, almost 10 years ago.
No, I don't know about that. I lost track of time. It's been for a while.
It's been at least 5 or 6 because at the time I was still married. And that was about 5 years ago.
Okay. That was a long time ago.
It was. So you think that they would grow tired of this by now, but no.
Well, and the tie-in here is a lot of these folks, these were right smack in the atheist community. Like they would identify as at least non-believers, most of them as atheists.
Or at least just a portion of them. And there's crossover that has hurt a lot of people who do podcasting or YouTube or...
Mm-hmm. That whole Mythicist Milwaukee kind of camp, the Sargon kind of group of atheists.
Yep. Same kind of people. Like, we're rational. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Well, where can we go from here? Because my question is, right after 9/11, I guess, it was around 2005 that it really started, the atheist movement started booming with the Four Horsemen kind of stuff. And we all felt like humanism was a direct result of atheism. And I think we're finding out the hard way that that's not the case. And we're going to have to make some kinds of adjustments. We can't just sit back and do what the three of us are doing, kind of what the majority of the atheist community is doing right now, and just pointing our fingers and going, "You're bad people." Like that tactic didn't work well for Hillary, right? Whenever she said, "Oh, they're the deplorables." Like it just doesn't. It's not good marketing. It doesn't sell. We have to offer something that people would want. And it has to be more than criticism.
What my thought is on that, and again, I'm not speaking for the Minnesota Atheist Organization, just to be on the safe side. My big thing with that is I want to offer community. It's like there's so much grossness and such in so many different communities, and people, they want to find there's a place or a group that's going to be like, yeah, just come on in. And so my thing is I want to have that community. Admittedly, churches do a good job with community. The good one. The better ones. They definitely have that support and such. And that's what I want to offer. And it's like, we don't have to just go around and such and point, but I want people to find a place that they can call almost home or friends that they can count on and such. And that's my push, because it's not even a kill 'em with kindness. It's a, you know what, fine, you go over there, you do your thing. And I just realized I talked for the last bit. I'm sorry, Robert.
No, I was listening. I agree. I agree 100%.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning into Atheist Talk. We'd love for you to join us next Sunday, which should be another exciting episode. Have a good weekend.